All right, good morning. Welcome to Good News York. It's Tuesday. I don't even know what month it is, so I'm not going to attempt to do the date.
Yep.
Mike Brindisi, Matt Mazur. You're tuning in to the day that I knew it was going to happen at some point. We showed up with the same outfit on.
Somehow our laundry piles had the same clean shirt on the top.
We're on the
I don't
same
know how that worked.
Is it like when women get, like, their periods are on the same cycle?
It might
like
be.
Now we're on the same clothing.
What color underwear are you wearing?
Let me check. I'm wearing pink thongs. Blue underwear. Going blue underwear today.
All right, I don't want to answer that because now it's getting scary.
Okay.
Anyway, we don't want to delay this nonsense any longer because we have a guest waiting for us.
We do.
Give us a quick introduction, and then we will bring him with us.
I feel like I don't have
Bring
to
him
give an
on.
introduction because I feel like we've just mentioned him so many damn times on the podcast because we've had a bunch of comedians on, and we always reference Mike Peters.
Yeah.
Mike Peters, at this point, I call him a friend of mine. A brilliant comedian and I would say promoter. He started Homebrewed Comedy. It started as a small thing, and now it has blown up, and I'm glad to be a part of it. He has single-handedly created a comedy scene in all of upstate New York, and
It's incredible.
it's awesome, and we have him on the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Mike Peters.
Mike Peters, what's up, buddy?
Welcome to Good News York.
Hey, thanks, guys. Appreciate you extending this invitation. And by the way, I am not brilliant. I did not single-handedly create a scene, though I will accept both of those.
Is it fair to say you're like the Phil Farda of the Southern Tier?
He is the Phil Farda of the Southern
That's
Tier.
sort of a...
Listen,
I don't know if that's something he might want to be called, but...
I don't know. Anytime you're compared to Phil Farda, it seems like an insult.
That's perfect.
I think you have more hair.
Yeah.
I do have more hair.
Yeah,
I have
see?
way more hair.
He's
Actually,
already winning.
Mike, we were talking about this off the air recently, and I need your I need your point of view on this. Doesn't it seem like Phil continuously always has hot women around him?
Yeah, I wonder why. It's probably an accident.
It has to be an accident. But we were saying the other day, I'm like, why is it every time I see Phil, he's got hot women with him? And I love Phil, but look, he's Brad Pitt.
That is the blessing of being funny.
That's true.
That's
true.
Having a mild sense of humor is the only way a schlub like me ever found a wife. You know
That's
what I
true.
mean? So
That's true.
But
Yeah,
but enough.
there's really, I'm not taking any shots at you, man, but I'm in the same situation. And without being mildly funny, like I'll make my girlfriend laugh so much harder off stage than on stage.
Oh, yeah.
And like without that skill, no way. Listen, I got 3 cats, and I have 3 cats for a reason, because I plan on being alone for a long time.
So, Mike, enough about us and people that aren't here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about you. How did you get into this? Did you start out as a comedian yourself and then kind of stumble into the business side of things, or how did that work out for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I started doing stand-up when I was 33, so I'm 42 now. So if you do the math, Mike, I'll help you. That's almost 9 years.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, you're
I was at 12. Thank you.
No, I used to be a sports writer, and I always wanted to do stand-up, and then I stopped having a second shift job. And when I moved up to New York, I was in Baltimore for a while. I moved back to New York, and I was like, I need an outlet to write. So I started doing stand-up. And then Mike can probably attest to this, but like when you start doing stand-up, you're mad at everybody else because you're not getting enough work. Like people in the local scene aren't booking you.
Sure.
So I started hosting the open mic in Binghamton like 4 or 5 months in, almost by default. Like nobody else wanted to do it. And I was like, fine, I'll do it. And because I've always been like a natural leader. I was like, screw it. If you're not going to get me on your show, then I'll just start booking my own shows. Because what I've learned, maybe the most important thing in comedy I've learned, is that nobody can not book you on your own show.
It's true.
That's very true.
But what I did was like, there were a couple of people who were really working hard in the Binghamton scene, and I didn't feel like they were getting enough recognition for the work they were putting in. So I wanted to promote them too. So I would book 3 or 4 people. I'd go to Ithaca to see people. I'd go to Syracuse and Scranton. And I wanted to make sure in my mind, the underrepresented comedians who were working got their due. And then a bar owner at Matty B's named Marty Arneson is like, hey man, do you want to do weekly shows here? And I was like, yeah. So then I'm like, okay, I'm constantly on the hunt for newer comedians just to add, because you know, it happens everywhere, but like, you make friends and then like you only book your friends.
Yeah.
And then eventually it's a disservice. No matter how good those comedians are, it's a disservice to the audience members.
Like Adam Sandler movies.
Yeah, but
Everybody's seen that show.
yeah, but they're better.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, I'm not. No, I love those guys. But
Right. But they're hilarious and they're doing different. So it's similar. But the guys I saw coming through and getting shows every week, every 2 weeks, whatever it was, in the same room with the same audience, were telling the same jokes. And it's eventually that audience is not going to come back because they would recite jokes to me via text.
Oh.
So I'm like, okay. And so I'm like, let me go to Ithaca. Let me find somebody funny there. Let me, whatever. And then that kind of tumbled into me going off on my own. And because I was working with a group for a little bit, then I went off on my own and I'm like, screw everybody else. I want to do everything my way. And then I started finding new venues in different areas because I didn't want to oversaturate the one area, Binghamton. So yeah, somebody from Syracuse reached out. Hey, you want to do this show? Somebody from Cortland reached out. Seneca Lake, like all this stuff. So it was like a little bit of an avalanche, and then the pandemic hit, and then I had to rebuild. But at least I had the framework. But yeah, it definitely started as a comedian who was like hungry for work, and I took advantage of an apathetic town and scene, and said, "Fuck you guys! If you're not, I hope I can swear, whatever."
Oh yeah.
But I was like, "Fuck you guys! If you're not going to put in the work, I will, and I will benefit." I think it's worked.
That's awesome.
That's great.
We were on a Christian network till he just swore. Now we're gonna get dropped. Thanks, Mike.
I feel like the Sarah Silverman looking over his shoulder will save
great.
us. So
Jesus is magic.
That's a phenomenal background.
I absolutely. What is that? Are those like canvas prints?
Yeah,
or?
yeah.
Okay.
It was a pandemic project because I told Mike this a little bit ago, but my relationship with my last girlfriend went so well that we had separate bedrooms. And like she moved out and I basically
And you didn't know?
No, I knew. Trust me, I knew. It was a party day. But for like a year I had a guest bedroom there. I bought it for comedians come in, they can have my second room.
There you go.
It was used one time by a person, and it ended up being like a cat room. So like the cats would have the bed. It was a ridiculously expensive bed for a cat.
Sure.
It was not an expensive bed, but for a cat
For a
will
cat,
sleep on a
yeah.
card. My cat, one of my favorite guys in the world, will sleep on a cardboard box. So he did not need a king or queen size bed.
Sure.
But no, I took that out and I'm like, all right, I have like the pandemic money. I was on unemployment. So I was getting like that bonus check. And I'm like, screw it. Let me spend some money. And yeah, I bought like 63 canvas prints of like albums I really like.
That's awesome.
There's Offspring Smash and Motion City Soundtrack, Bad Religion, like you name it. All the albums like I grew up with, my favorite bands, and a lot of my favorite comedians. And I'm like, let me dedicate that. And then I got my picture for my podcast on the mic with Mike Peters.
I love that, dude.
Because I was like, everybody needs one fan, right?
Sure.
So I might as well be me. So I put that up there. So when I record my podcast predominantly through Zoom, then I at least have something to look at behind me. So I figured, and I wrote it off. So
Perfect.
It was
There
just
you
a
go.
suspense.
I told him it reminds me. Remember when you used to go to Hot Topic and pick out a T-shirt? Like
Yeah.
they had all
Yeah.
the squares,
Yeah.
but much
pretty cool.
cooler. And I would
That's-
buy all those T-shirts.
I didn't even
except
quite
for the
think of
Mike
that, but
Peters
that's
one.
exactly-
I wouldn't
yeah.
buy the Mike Peters one, but I would buy
would-
all the other ones.
I feel like you had that Offspring one.
No,
You strike me as a dude that had
No.
that T-shirt.
you know what? Offspring. So I'm very big, obviously, into rock music,
Yeah.
pop punk. I never really got into Offspring.
Okay.
I was Blink. I was Green Day. Newfound Glory.
Slight. I don't want to take too much of a
Rancid.
detour, but I got to ask: do you have either one of you guys? Do you have any of those '90s band T-shirts that you got as a kid in the '90s? Do you have any of them still? I do not.
I have
Go for it,
I have a couple Metallica shirts.
Because those are, we're old enough now. That shit is vintage and it's worth money.
That's pretty. I never thought about that.
I have, like, unless like they were ruined or a girlfriend took them, I have all of my shirts from like high school, or I can't fit into one of them. But I don't want to. I think I was like 185, 180 in high school, and I am
Hi, Kitty.
bigger. I am bigger than that now. So they're all like saved somewhere. I don't throw away my clothes because I'm hopeful that I can one day fit into them.
Yeah.
But like, I have some larges, and I'm like, my leg will not fit in a large. So my girlfriend's like, you should throw them away. I'm like, you should wear them. She's like, I'm not going to wear a Blink-182 shirt. Whatever. I got 9 of them.
You can hand them down to your cats.
Here's the thing: if you have original band shirts, man, that's like when Grandpa used to collect stamps.
Yeah.
That shit is worth money.
It's true.
That's an investment at this point. You're gonna be able to buy a house with that. You're gonna need to be able to buy a house with that. But keep those safe, buddy. Keep the mothballs in there and keep them in good condition.
I have a brown cardigan sweater that I bought at the Ilion Salvation Army.
Hell yeah!
Back in '97.
Yep.
It was when I had first heard Nirvana.
The old Sally Ann's.
And we went from spandex and teased hair and Def Leppard, and then overnight, there's a guy in a cardigan, combat boots, and long hair screaming at me in "Smells Like Teen Spirit" video, and I went out and bought a cardigan because I thought that was the coolest thing, and that's the only thing I have from.
Still a great sweater.
It's a great, and I wear it on Thanksgiving. It became my Thanksgiving.
On Thanksgiving.
But anyway, enough about me.
Why? This is great.
Well, you're our guest, man.
Oh,
so, Mike, you went from being in comedy to putting comedy together for other folks. What is that like for you today? What is your business model? Because I see you all over the place doing all kinds of things. And what's your plan?
My plan is basically, it's Homebrewed Comedy is where I run everything. So I don't want to stray too far from the general ideal, which is promoting the local comedians.
Sure.
So every once in a while I get somebody from Boston or Connecticut or LA. But what I like about my business is that the comedian can be from your backyard.
Yeah.
Like Mike and I did a show in Dryden on Saturday.
We did.
And I'm from Binghamton. I am 40 minutes away. Mike you're from Utica, right?
No, I'm originally from the Mohawk Valley, Utica area. Now I live in Ithaca, yeah.
So you're what, 25 minutes away from the place?
Yeah, 25, 30 minutes.
Karen Runtowski is a phenomenal comedian. She's from I forget where she grew up, but she's lived in LA for a long time. She lives in Utica. So like the three of us together drove a combined like 2.5 hours, 3 hours, whatever. Yeah. And we got there and we put on a really good show for pretty cheap, $10 tickets. So
packed.
And yeah, we had like 50 some people there, and people might poo that or whatever, but like we had so much fun. People left. We got another show date. My brand did. And that's what it is. It's like we do a good show, we get another show.
Sure.
But like my whole thing is I want to show the audience that you don't need to go, as much as I like the clubs, you don't need to go to the Comedy of the Carlson. You don't need to go to the Syracuse, Albany Funny Bones just to see the State Theater, just to see comedians. Like, you have options near you for cheaper. And these are the people who hopefully are going to be ascending to those club stages. And I work with a lot of people who do clubs and theaters and whatever, and that's great. But I don't know what I want in the long term, but right now I want to keep being the conduit from like open mics to good shows, so people can feel like they're not spinning their wheels. Like all the work they're putting into on the side is going to pay off with 60 people who didn't know their name. Like they're not. let's take a shot at Mike Brindisi because I like doing that. But who the fuck is that guy? Like,
Sure.
But he goes there and like, oh yeah, I laughed at that one joke, just the one, just the one. But they'll have a good time because somebody they didn't know of until they got there made them laugh, and they're like, oh wow, there are funny people here, and I really like doing that. So I don't know, like I think that kind of is my model.
That's great.
Let's promote from within. And I still host open mics, and it's a really good spot to grab new talent and reward people. I try to be as humble as possible and say, "Oh, I'm not rewarding you with a show." People, it is.
Yeah.
You do the open mics to get recognized by your peers first.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the audience. I don't know. It's fun.
And let me just embarrass you in a good way for a moment. But coming from my point of view, one of the comedians, the thing that's amazing about what Mike is doing is that it has never strayed from exactly what he was saying. Like his original idea was exactly what he explained. And fast forward, I don't know, whatever, 5, 6, 7 years later that he's been doing it. The things that have changed are there's more shows, more venues, more comedians, but he has not strayed from finding those comedians that need a voice and need to get started, but also rewarding the comedians that have been on the roster. But more importantly, and we talk about this all the time, he knows what comedians to put with who, when to put them on, where to put them on, based on geographically, based on the type of crowd. And people overlook that point. That's such an important, like when you're a promoter and you're booking, that's a key component to it that a lot of promoters overlook. And Mike puts all of that thought into it, and he spreads it around so everybody gets work, but he puts you in a position to succeed because he's not going to throw you in front of a crowd that might not, you might be a darker comedian, you might be a dirty comedian, you know what I mean? So
sure.
I think that's a big reason for your success, Mike, is because the way you do it is the right way, and that's hard to find these days. And I will say, most importantly, if you're watching and you're a comedian, you never have to worry about him not paying you or paying you unfairly. It is completely transparent, and that's an important part too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured that when I started doing shows, we didn't know how to ask for money. Like, you're a musician, and so, Mike, you probably did local shows with your band.
Yeah.
To start off. So, like, when you went in there, did you know at first, okay, I should go and ask the bar manager or the owner for a budget?
Yeah. No, that's the thing, is you just learn as you go.
Yeah. So we didn't know that. And in Binghamton, the bar we were doing stuff at first, Maddie B's, the owner was a comedian as well. And it was just a place to do shows. We would charge $5 at the door. Asking for money before, it didn't even dawn on anybody. And at least I know Buffalo right now is pretty transparent about the comedians saying, okay, if you're going to do a show, ask for at least this much money. Mm-hmm. We didn't have that. So it was just like, hey, can we do a show here? We'll just charge $5 at the door. You don't have to pay us anything. Whereas it's fine, but as a promoter, it puts you in a really weird position because I got to be like, hey, Matt, Mike, you want to do this show? There's no guaranteed money, but it'll be a door split. Yeah. And it's $5 at the door. So like on a good night, when you're starting, 20 people would be awesome.
Yeah.
But then you got 3 or 4. And at that point we had 5 or 6 because we didn't have a lot of time we didn't have many jokes. So you got to build an hour-and-a-half show, and I can only do 10. So we need to find somebody who can do 15 or 20, and then you end up having 5 or 6. So that $100 is split now between 5 or 6 people. And then Mike's coming from an hour away. Josh is only 10 minutes away. So does he get It's weird. So like maybe on a good night, I'm paying somebody $20. So in hindsight, like that sucks because now I'm able to ask for money, and then maybe it's a ticket. Maybe what I did, and I feel bad about it sometimes, but I put out tip jars. And
no, that's phenomenal.
Here's what it is. It's a psychological move because, and I think it's like a DIY thing for me, but like my budget from the bars is still probably on the cheap side, but it's guaranteed money. It's 3, 4, 500, whatever it is, but it's guaranteed money. So when I ask Mike to do a show, I'm like, hey, Mike, you want to do the show? It's $100 plus tips. So Mike knows that he's getting $100. I know that I can pay Mike $100 because I'm getting $300. So like I have that money. That's guaranteed money, unless the bar defaults, which almost never happens. But again, because I'm transparent and got a relationship with them. But I know that if the show's okay, we're probably going to get $30 in tips. So I can pay Mike $110. Split between 3 people. I can pay Mike $110. So Mike goes away saying, shit, man, he told me I was going to get 100. I got 110. It's not much different. But psychologically, Mike knows that not only is he going to get that guaranteed money, he's also going to get something extra. So it might be worth the farther drive to get. And usually we get paid more in tips or whatever, because I do free shows. I do low ticket options. So people feel more compelled. Oh, we got a great show for $10. Wow. They deserve another 10. I don't know. But that makes me look better than I should be looking.
Yeah. But
it does tell the comedian, hey, man. And then the word spreads. You can trust Mike, because a lot of bookers don't pay.
No.
Or they're not transparent about what. So tickets $25, and hey, Mike, you want to do a show? We don't talk money. And then Mike does the show and gets paid $25. It's like we had 50 people there at $25 a pop.
Yeah.
And I got 1 ticket's worth.
Right.
It sucks. I don't want to do it that way, because I am still booking as a comedian. So I'm trying so hard to play both ends. Okay, I know what I need to make money, but I know how it feels to not make enough money.
Sure.
But
So I never want to do that.
I think, but that's also perfect, because what I learned in my time when I've done radio in the past is almost every GM of a radio station in small markets and medium markets they always said the best GMs are the ones that have been on the air but have also worked in sales, because they have both perspectives. And I think that's what you bring to the comedy scene, is because of what you just said. You're doing it as a promoter, but also as a comedian. And look, here's the deal though. When you're starting out, or even when you're at this level, if you're doing it for the money, then you're going to quit the same day you start. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're going to be very disappointed.
You're going to be very disappointed. The money for me was always like, the money will come if and when I succeed.
Sure.
I'll just take what I can get for now, and until I feel it's unfair. And it was never unfair. And I commend you for that, man. You've always done it right from the start. There was never a hiccup. That's what always blew my mind about it.
No, there were hiccups for sure. But I think when I started working with you, it was 2019, I think?
I think so, yeah.
It was before the pandemic.
It was before the pandemic.
I think Trumansburg was the first show we did together.
Yep, you're right.
And and that was a large part because of you, but we had 63 people there.
That was a big show, yeah.
It was a big show. And I forget how the ticket breakdown was. I forget what I paid you, but like, I know I paid you more than what I guaranteed.
Always.
And yes, always. Yeah. And here's a little trick. I very rarely, like if you're local and we didn't have the people to give tips or whatever, maybe I'll pay you exactly what I promised. But even if we get 0 tips, I'll probably throw in $5.
That's amazing.
So to make it so it feels better for me. Like we did a show on Friday, and we had 4 people on the show, including me. We got $15 in tips, which is like weird, but I doubled everybody's tip money. I didn't take anything, and I doubled everybody's tip money. But I'm like, I felt better about that. But no, that's the standard that I've set for myself, and I'm like, I just want everybody to walk away saying, all right, because no matter what you're getting paid, you're like, is it worth it? It's an hour and a half away. So if I can throw you, that's gas money.
Yeah.
If I could say, okay, here's $10, here's $5, that'll help for gas. It's like, oh, it was definitely worth it. Okay, cool.
Yeah, but see, you're also in that weird, you're in this amazing window where you have also created I guess everybody wins is what I'm saying. You walk away happy, the comedians walk away happy, and the venue walks away happy. That is so hard to do, and you do that consistently.
And I agree with that. And also the audience should walk away happy.
That's what I meant too. Yeah.
Now, obviously, there are times where an audience member didn't laugh or whatever, the stick in the mud, whatever. But for the most part, I think most people are happy. We get a lot of repeats, and we could do better with ticket sales, and everybody could. Or I have a lot of free shows that, like, sometimes they're work. Yeah. We're like, we got 18 people here, and that sucks. But those 18 people, I guarantee you, most of them have had a really good time. Because what I really enjoy about the comedy scene in general around here, at least the people I work with, is that they're not, for the most part, they're not going to play down to the numbers of the audience. So Mike's not going to see 3 people in the audience and say, fuck you guys, I hate you. Why didn't you bring more people? Yeah. Mike's going to see those 3 people and say, you know what, thank you so much for taking time out of your night.
It might be kind of funny, though.
That would be,
I'm not going to lie.
Just walk up and be like, fuck.
I'll tell you what, I think it would be funny to watch, but as a producer, I'd be like,
yeah, no.
Those 3 people are the only reason we can do this show. But yeah, I know, like, in the past, I've had that where it was at Buried Acorn in the summer last year, and we had 3 people. We had the staff, and which I think was 1 person, and then we had 3 people who paid. Maybe there's another person there, and Abdul Hadi, super funny comedian in Syracuse, and Dario Joseph, really funny comedian in Rochester. They came down and they did their entire set, full set, didn't give a shit. And I paid them. I made no money because the deal I had with Buried Acorn fell apart, and I was doing those shows to do those shows. So it was solely on tickets. I paid them out of my pocket more money than I promised because I was like, you guys killed it for me. And you didn't say, screw this show, screw this audience. You gave those 3 people a really good show, and hopefully, and I think they did, but hopefully they'll come back next time and we can build, because it just means so much to me. And I feel bad too. Like, I want them to have 30 people, not 3, and have a great experience. But the fact that they didn't take the night off was just phenomenal to me.
That's for me. That was something that was instilled in me at a young age when I started performing, whether it was music or whether it was comedy. I was always like, you put on a show, if there's 3 people or 30,000 people, you put on that same show. And it sounds simple, but people overlook that. There was definitely shows I've done in the past, like in the dead of winter in Owego, where there was like 5 people. But you know what? You still, because we've talked about this before too.
They trudged out too.
And we've talked about this too. You're also, what's different in comedy, where in music, if you're in a band, you guys can play a song in rehearsal and go, God, that sounds like shit. And then you rehearse until you are polished and you're like, you know what, we're ready. In comedy, the only way for you to rehearse truly is to go out and do it. So those nights where there's 3 people, if you're smart, you'll go, maybe I'll stray off what I was going to do and do these 5 jokes that I want to try out.
You got to work a little bit.
It actually can work for you in some ways.
Sure.
No?
Yeah. I always think that the smaller the audience, the harder the night.
Totally.
Because like, when you have, I'm not going to say 30,000. I wanted to tag off that, but I'm like, there's no fucking way I'm doing that.
Yeah, no.
But if you have 100 people in the audience and a joke works okay, it works. But if you have 8 people in the audience and a joke works okay, that means 1 person laughed. 2 people laughed. It's like, oh shit. You really see how much that joke didn't work.
Yeah.
Like, you can't be fooled. So you have to make an intimate connection with these people. So I'll do a couple tricks. If I have a low turnout in the audience, and hopefully it doesn't happen, so I don't have to do this very often, but I'm like, oh, it looks like my 8th birthday party. Are we going to put together a model car with Steve? Where's Stephen Yarrington? Where is he? because that's who showed up at my 8th birthday. It was whatever. I wasn't a popular kid.
No, I get it.
But I'm like an empty table. It's like, oh, I feel like this is going to be my wedding, where that's the groom's side.
Yeah.
And point to the other. So there's certain ways you can break the tension and make that audience know that it's a unique experience for them.
That's right.
Hey, this show is for you. So if you go off script, be like, hey, what do you guys want to hear? Do you mind if I try something new? Something like that. Or do more crowd work. There's a show at the Barleycorn where I was doing it weekly, and I would host it every week, and I'd try to bring a different 10 to 15 minutes to host every single week. And it wouldn't all be new, but a lot of it was like done that week at the open mic. And when I'm doing it weekly, I'm like, well, if it's good or bad, I got to fucking do it.
Yeah.
So I bring that, and I would, there's one set where somebody dropped off the show. I had to do longer time. So I remember doing 12 or 14 minutes of crowd work, and I'd never done that much. And I felt really good.
Yeah.
And like, I think my set was 25 minutes, which for an opener probably is too long, but we had 2 other people who like weren't expected to do longer. I want to say the headliner dropped. So we had to do a 3-person show. And so the last guy was only going to do 25 minutes anyway. But it was one of my favorite shows there because I got to know this audience really well. And I went off script and did crowd work with people who hadn't been there before. And it was so much fun. So like any show you have the opportunity to like make connections and make it so much fun for everybody. That's why I will try my hardest never to take like a night off. Like I don't want to go to work and be like, it's a fucking paycheck, whatever you guys want to do. I don't care.
Yeah. He's right. And then to take that even further, like the one amazing thing about comedy is it's never the same show. Even if the comedian does exactly the same jokes, you're going to get different reactions, there's always interaction with the crowd. There's this beautiful thing in comedy and that's why those shows where there's only 3 people is an opportunity always, because something magical could happen inside that club, an interaction with somebody that is never going to happen again and never happened before. And I want to ask you about this. Matt and I were talking this past weekend. It was a big comedy weekend. Obviously, you and I, Mike, we had our show March 22nd in Dryden at the Corner Brew, and that was great. Sunday, I went and saw Colin Jost at Cornell, and it was in Barton Hall, which is this giant airplane hangar. It was the size of a graduation. There were thousands of people.
Wow.
And it was Michael Longfellow from SNL opened, as well as a woman, I can't remember her name. She was on SNL from 22 to 24. And I can't say they bombed, but it was rough. And I was like sweating and cringing in my seat because obviously as a comedian, when you see other comedians like going through it, it's hard. It's hard. You feel for them. And then I had this realization, and it's the opposite of what we're talking about. I think it's like there were so many people and you're so disconnected, like you can't even see them, that it's hard. It's almost if you took that same set, but they were in not even a comedy club, at the Barleycorn, or I just think the jokes would have translated better. You would have, you know what I'm saying? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, like that setting is probably, and I haven't been there, but it's probably a little more impersonal.
Oh God, yeah.
So if you had, and also, I don't know, I mean, if she was on SNL for 3 years, she's obviously known, but those people probably went there to see Colin Jost.
Yes.
Sure.
And Mike, you were in like an opening band for a while.
Yeah.
You probably were like, all right. People probably talked over your band way more than you wanted, because what they wanted was the headliner.
Sure.
Yep.
And that every comedian goes through it. So, those 2 people from SNL probably are like, maybe they're not headlining comedians yet, though I imagine they are, but like they're just going through the motions because fuck, man, this is a hard gig because all they want to see is Jost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to eat it for a little bit.
Yeah. And
college audiences are harder.
Yeah.
That's the consensus, at least.
It was. And it was so big. It reminded me when you would hear big comedians like Kevin Hart and other comedians that are like, I actually don't like doing arenas. I prefer small comedy clubs because of that connection that's just naturally there. There's a lot of subconscious parts of comedy.
Makes sense.
Like we've talked about with ticketing and seating. Like when you sell tickets and you provide seating on your way to the comedy club or on your way to the bar to the comedy show, you're already subconsciously setting yourself up to be open to laugh more because you know you're going to a comedy show, as opposed to drinking at happy hour and then all of a sudden a comedian gets on stage and you're like, what the fuck is...
Like, it's the difference with a free show and a ticketed show.
100%.
Because, you know, it's psych. I wish I took more psych in college. Like, I took a family relations just because I have a fucked up family, and I got a really good grade in the course. And then I took intro to psych, which was at 9 o'clock in a fucking lecture hall. So I get nothing out of that stuff. But
nothing can be taught at that hour. They're trying to keep that shit a secret.
That's right.
It's so dumb. So also in comfortable chairs.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Ridiculous.
But I think there's so much psychology in comedy, because like when you buy a ticket, like I run Don't Tell shows in Binghamton as well, and their whole brand is secret shows in secret locations. Tickets are $25. So the shows I'm offering people at most are like $10, $15, $20. It's usually in that area, but I let the venue decide to pay or what the ticket is. So if they want to give me the money to have a free show, they do that. So we're all over the spectrum. Don't Tell is $25. They don't know who's on the show. They don't know where the show is until that morning. And they get an email. So they're spending $25 to laugh. That means they are invested. They don't give a fuck if Mike Brindisi or Karen Rotowska is on the show. What they do is they're paying $25 to laugh tonight.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They're an easy audience. You still got to win them over, but like they're set up for you. When you go to a show at the Barleycorn, which is $5 donation, I mean, it's basically a tip show and with a budget behind it. You go to, I have a show, Beer 30, completely free. There is zero expectation for that show to be funny. So you have to work so much harder for that room, because you're also dealing on these shows with people at the bar who don't give a fuck that you're there.
Just random patrons.
Who are mad at you because you turned the jukebox off.
That's right. Sure. That's right.
Who can't see this TV because my banner's in front of it. Mm-hmm. They can't use I'm talking about one Beer 30. That room. They can't use the middle room because, there's a show going on there.
Yep.
So you're battling some elements. That's a hard show.
Yeah.
So when you have that set up, you're like, okay, it's all on me.
Yeah.
And that your material, it's a hard room. You either do really well because the audience is into it, or you think about doing something else because the audience is like, I don't want you.
Yeah.
So you're like, am I doing this? Am I wasting my time?
Yeah. I found out about Mike's Don't Tell comedy shows the hard way. I showed up for my show and I was like, oh my God, there's nobody here yet. It's a secret show. He's like, nope, everybody knows you're on the bill. There's just fucking nobody here for you. So.
Oh my God.
No.
This is no joke. I am completely in my head about this stuff. But when I was running shows with a group of comedians in Binghamton, I would host pretty much every show. And then we would get 5 people, 8 people, whatever. We were still growing. But the minute I was not on the flyer and I'm just producing the show, we get like 60 people. and I swear to God, it's the same. It happens all the time. To the point where I host an open mic every week at Kelly's on Mondays, every week. And I host it. And we get 5 people in the audience and 10 comedians, whatever it is. And I've had a couple people who are like, hey, can I host? And I'm like, yeah. I don't announce they're hosting, but they'll guest host for me. And we'll get 30 people in the audience and 15 comedians. I'm like, what the fuck, man? People sense that I'm not hosting. And they're like, you know what? We're going tonight. And I'm like, it feels like a conspiracy. Do you just not like me?
That's
and
the
that's
worst.
happened for 9 years.
That's the worst.
Yeah.
Before we move on, I'm hijacking the interview. I apologize.
No, we're good.
You just reminded me of a show that Mike and I did. I tell this story all the time. Remember when we did, what the hell was the name of that part?
I know it
with the wedding party.
Yes, the bachelorette party.
What?
Dude.
Rhythm and Booze.
Rhythm and Booze. The F&A Rhythm and
Waterloo.
Booze.
That was the name of the bar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
F&M Rhythm and Booze.
Yeah. Do you want to tell that story?
All right. So
I gotta
this
hear
is
this.
great. So we go there, and I think this is the third show I've done there, second or third. The room is really, it has potential.
Yes.
Because
nice
you go
stage.
there, yes, it's a beautiful stage, and then they set up like 30 chairs in the middle of the room. Like the first two shows, this is what happened. They set up 30 chairs so everybody can watch. Nobody comes over and watches because like they're all hanging out at the bar, which is on a different level. But like if you're on the stage, they're to your right.
And it's
so
a
see
biker
them.
bar. It's a
Okay.
biker bar.
Yeah. So like you can see the people, they can see you, but like you can't really interact with them because they're technically in a separate room.
Sure.
There's a railing and
I
a
got you.
stairwell, so separating you. And then a couple people will be sitting far at the end in like on folding tables for food. All right, so this whole 30 chair setup is beautiful, but it's useless. So the third show we did there was me, Mike Brindisi, and Zach Hammond from Pennsylvania.
Which he crushed.
Yeah. Crushed. Yes, but here's why he crushed. So I'm almost excited because the owners, hey, we've got a large party coming in here for the show. And I'm like, sweet. And she's like, it's a bachelorette party. And I'm like, not sweet. So I'd never done a bachelorette party before. And I was like, all right, I've heard stories that they're the worst. So I think the last weekend, like the weekend before that, I had done like a set at Wisecrackers Comedy Club in Scranton. And I killed. So I'm like, sweet, I'm going to take this. It's going to go well. It's basically a lot of what my feature set is now. It's pretty strong for the success rate is strong. So I go there. They hate me. So there's 19 people in this wedding party, and they don't care. They're all at the very end of the room and at the folding table and everything, eating. And the one person from that 19-person party came up to sit with us. It was the mom of the bride. Sat right in the front, and then we had like maybe 3 or 4 other people sitting to watch, and then there were like 5 or 6 people on the side at the bar listening. And I do a little bit of crowd work, and they like it because it involves them.
Sure.
The minute I stepped away and did material, they didn't give a shit
At all.
And I think one of the first things I said was like, I forget what the punchline was, but I said fuck. And the mom, who's like in the first row, she covers her ears and goes, I said, what? She goes, that word. I go, you're in for a lot of those.
Yeah.
I said, we got 90 minutes left. It was really like my second joke. And I was like, all right, cool. At one point, I think I'm probably like 15 minutes in for something like that. Somebody from the back yells, when is the next guy coming on? And I said, in 4 minutes. And I did 4 more minutes, and I introduced Mike. Mike didn't do it. You could tell it, but Mike didn't do much better.
No.
And they all left.
Let me tell you from my point of view, right before Mike's about to go on, I can tell he's nervous, and he's never nervous.
It was bad.
And we got this bachelorette party, and I go, this is going to end one of two ways. It's either going to be fucking epic or awful. And so Mike gets up there, and as he said, about 15 minutes in, it's falling apart. And I turn to the other guy, the headliner, and I go, you know what, though? I go, Mike always keeps his composure. Like, it'll be fine. Mike fucking lost his composure. He ended up being like, fuck you guys. And
I did not say that.
Not fuck you guys, but basically. And they ended up like leaving by the time I got on stage. And I was like, I've never seen an MC clear out the room. Like usually the opener cleans out the room.
No, you remember this wrong.
Oh.
So I did not say fuck you guys. I think I was polite, but Mike gets on stage and he does his material, and 3 or 4 minutes into your act, they left.
That's what it was.
So listen, give me the assist.
Okay.
I'll take some blame.
Yeah, it was a group effort, but dude, They
but
cleared out.
That made me feel a little better. They're like, okay, they didn't. I would have cried probably if they all left during my set, but not that they liked me anymore. But I was like, okay. And then Zach, like Mike does his time, and we had fun.
Yeah.
And then
whatever.
the headliner, Zach, gets there, and he's basically calling them every name he
Dude,
can.
He went.
And the people on the bar side loved it because they all hated them.
Yeah.
Because they made noise.
They weren't there for that. Yeah.
Yeah. They talked in the show. They were rude. They were probably demanding up top of the bar, and they were just happy to have them out. So like, I didn't think about this, but the staff was probably part of the people who were cheering.
Yeah.
For Zach.
Yeah. No, and Zach, who's amazing, by the way, he like started with his material, which is fantastic. Then he just went, like he said, he just went off script and just fucking lambasted bachelorette parties and that bachelorette party. And it was like, but I just remember being up there doing my time, and it was like me. There was one person in the seat, and then another guy who I feel like he had a disability, like he was in a wheelchair or something, and he's just looking at me.
He couldn't leave. He was below where the steps are.
That's right.
So he was
literally
ours.
couldn't leave because he was disabled. Like he couldn't get up the steps without help, and there was nobody else. And I remember his
That's what
face.
they call a captivated audience.
Yeah, he had this look on his face.
I put a stick in his spokes. He couldn't go anywhere.
I'll never forget this, though. I get up there. I'm about 5 minutes in. They leave. I look around. It's me and this disabled guy and one other person and Mike and the other comedian. And I just remember the guy's look on his face. Like he kept looking around and his jaw was dropped. Like he just couldn't believe what he saw. He could not believe the epic fucking disaster that he had just witnessed.
That's incredible.
But anyway.
But Mike, you got paid, didn't you?
I did. I did. I got paid. Amazing.
Always an adventure.
That was the last show we did there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was one of those things where, like, my girlfriend, because we had 2 shows there, and I think the first show was okay, and the second one was, or the other way around, and the second show was better. But it was one of those things where it's like, if they ask me to do another show, I'll do it because I had room on the calendar.
Sure.
And I will do anything for money.
Got nothing better
So,
to do.
and like I want to give somebody stage time, so I'll take it. And she just never asked me again. So I'm like, all right, cool, because it didn't work, and it's a music venue for sure, and it's like we tried, but
Fair.
It was called FNA, Rhythm and Booze, and now I know why. I
FNA,
left literally.
FNA, that's right.
Yeah, and I walked out
FNA,
going,
right.
"Fucking A," you know.
Yeah.
Man, there was a lot. There was no rhythm,
Truth
but
in
a ton of booze.
advertising.
Yeah.
I've had to drive past that, like through Waterloo, to get places, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that place. Okay, never going back.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's
Owner
wild.
was really nice though. I can't speak enough about her. But
Staff was great.
She tried, but yeah,
she tried.
And that's the thing. Sometimes comedy just doesn't work somewhere, and that's
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
take the L.
Let's talk about where it does work, Mike. Where are your next coming shows where folks can see you and your band of local funnies?
Probably my favorite place right now is a place in McGraw, which McGraw, New York is McGraw. It's the McGraw Box Brewing Company. I do a show in Syracuse every month, North Syracuse. That's like the second Friday of the month, and we got really good comedians coming through there. But
what's the venue?
Yeah, where's that one?
It's McGraw Box Brewing Company. It's fancy. It's behind the Mr. Tire.
Oh,
it's you've heard of it. There's a Taco Bell across the street.
Okay.
It's like on Brewerton Road.
Okay.
So I think they opened. The first show we did was April 12th last year, and I think they opened in like February or March. So it's fun. Tickets are like $10 plus you get a beer with your drink or with your ticket, and it'd be great if you got a beer with your drink.
Yeah,
it's a new promotion.
Order a drink, get a beer.
Yeah, but those shows are fun. But yeah, I do a show. This week I got a show at Beer 30 on Thursday in Binghamton, and then but we always end the month at McGraw Box in McGraw near Cortland, and that's so much fun. I got a comedian from New York City coming up, Will Papura.
Yeah,
he's very good. And then I have RJ Papura from Rochester.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah. But I'm like, oh, this will be fun. So I asked RJ Papura, I'm like, hey, I got 2 dates for you. Do you want to work with Cindy Arena.
Are they
he already
related?
knows. No, he doesn't know.
Oh,
Oh my
It's gonna
God.
be fun. And I'm like, or you can work with Will Purpura. He goes, I've seen the name. Let me work with Will. We'll see if we're related. So
wow.
we might have a reunion. It'd be great.
What if they show up and they're identical?
That'd be sick.
Now they do look different, but I don't know how many
Like a
Purpuras
matching
there are.
birthmark or something?
Yeah, or like a scarf.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They were cut at birth.
He's like, you got my dad's nose. Wait a minute. I actually saw RJ.
It is a pretty common name.
I did a show with RJ at the John Barleycorn,
Probably, yeah.
and he dug himself into a hole like with
That sounds right.
with a racist joke, not a racist joke, a joke about race, and some girl in the crowd started yelling at him, but he recovered brilliantly. But that was a wild night. He's RJ Purpura. Check it
RJ
out.
Purpura has one of
Wow.
my favorite jokes because he's talking about a home robbery, and he's like, there's a story about this woman who had, like, her kid died, and she had
Hilarious.
I've heard this so many times. I think it was a miscarriage,
Oh.
and or something like that, and she had in an urn, like, his remains.
Sure.
And then that was stolen from the house. I guess I just don't understand crime at this point. Like, you couldn't think of anything more valuable to take. And he's, you guys, I guess if you lose the same kid twice, you're not meant to have a kid.
Oh my
So,
Jesus.
but he wraps around his whole set. So if that joke goes well, and it doesn't always, but if it goes well, because it's fucking dark.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, when it's told, it's even better.
Yeah.
But he comes around at the end of the set, and he goes, it's a joke about ghosts or whatever. He goes, if not, I guess baby Travis still needs a home, or something like that. And like, when they get it, if he has an audience that's onto him,
Call back.
oh my God, it's a great callback.
Yeah.
So it's one of my favorite jokes. I'll listen to it again so I can tell it better the next time. But
Yeah.
but that's kind of him. He doesn't really deviate his style too much.
Dude,
He's a very good writer.
I had a callback joke. I tried it 3 times and it never worked. And it was like in the beginning of the set, I would just brush over. Yeah, I just recently went and visited my grandfather. We found out he has Alzheimer's, so I'm just worried it's genetic, so I'm just hoping it doesn't affect me. Then at the end of the set, there's like a break and it's quiet, and I go, yeah, I just went and visited my grandfather. He's got Alzheimer's. I just
That's
hope
good.
It does it. I thought it was good, but it bombed 3 times. Nobody
Yeah.
got it. So
I
but
hate
you're
that.
right.
I'll-
If you
It's an art form.
if you hit a callback, man, that's the
Yeah,
best.
it's like just walk off the stage.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Will Phillips this weekend
Oh,
at that
Will.
show. He's the
I
master
don't like
of
that guy. I don't like
He-
Will at all.
Yeah.
For some reason, no. Will is one of my favorites. I love watching him work.
He's amazing.
because it's complimentary. But I just saw him on Sunday. He came down to Owego. We hung out for a little bit. I love watching him.
Yeah.
And he is, since I've started, he's been one of my favorite local comedians. I used to see him in Syracuse a lot.
He's so
and
good.
He's performance-wise, he's great. I wish he didn't live around here so he could be
Sure.
bigger,
Yeah.
because I think he's that good.
Yeah.
No, he's
I agree.
He's phenomenal.
What's the
What were you
website?
gonna- What were you going to say about? What were you going to say about him, Matt?
No, I was just we were talking
wanna hear all
about
good things
callbacks, and
about
I was
Will.
just saying this past weekend I saw him on Friday night,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
he did a great set, and he just masters that
Yeah.
callback at the end, and it's perfect.
He opened for Ryan Niemiller from AGT. It was Phil Fardas
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
So
Ryan's real good. I
where
like him
can
a lot.
we check out all your info? I know, but I'm just making you say it. Where you
Yeah.
go? Homebrewcomedy.com.
That's how this works, Mike.
Yeah.
This isn't his first podcast.
I had a feeling.
Everything I do is on homebrewedcomedy.com, or my personal Facebook page is where I put a lot of my content. Any jokes I write, I usually try it on Facebook first, and then when 13
Fair.
people are like, "Yeah, we're gonna this out of sympathy," I'm like, "Cool, I'll try it on stage."
That's great.
And then, but I do shows all. Just search on Facebook for Homebrewed Comedy, and you can follow. I don't know how many venues I have. It fluctuates between like 12 and 20 usually, but for the most part, I'm doing like 14, 15, 16 shows a month. around upstate New York for the most part. Dip into Pennsylvania a little bit.
That's incredible.
And I'm always trying to expand.
Go ahead.
No, and then I got a podcast on the mic with Mike Peters, so that comes out every Friday.
That was the one thing I was going to. Yeah, On the Mic with Mike Peters is his podcast as well, homebrewedcomedy.com. I always forget to ask you this. What is your quote-unquote roster? What's the number? Where are you at now? I feel like you started small, and I went to the website the other day. I was like, holy shit.
Oh, yeah. I have to update that, too. But because
in terms of comedians or venues?
Comedians, sorry.
Comedians.
So on my website, there's a section for comedians. And what I've done with that, and I probably am like 100 short of what I need to be there, because I keep adding. I just looked today and just before, and I have booked 281 comedians.
That's
wow.
I thought it was like 80 to 100. I've been saying,
well,
holy shit.
Regular comedians.
Sure. Yeah, probably, yeah.
Some of it's a little elevated because I did Zoom shows over the pandemic.
Uh-huh.
So my podcast, what I did for a little bit was like I had a Patreon thing, and I did shows every other weekend. Awesome. So in order to do the show, you had to have been on the podcast. So I would have a guy from Idaho or Oregon, whatever, or Utah, whatever.
Sure.
So they're people I booked because I've had them. It was easier to do it online.
Yeah.
So all of those guys aren't on the website, but I would say I probably rotate through about 80 to 100 throughout the year. Like I probably will book about 100 comedians every year. Not unique. So
sure,
it won't add to my total, but 281 is from the last 9 years. So yeah, I would say that's why I tell every venue, I'm like, every show you get, if we do monthly, it's going to be different.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the only one who repeats because I host all the shows. But even then, I'll have different material. So you're not going to get the same show at all. And I'm just fortunate that around this area, there's Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, Ithaca, Cortland, Elmira, Scranton, Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. There's so many pockets, Binghamton, obviously, but there's so many pockets of comedians who are working hard that I can keep adding to that roster. Absolutely. And I have goals every year. I want to always book 30 new to me comedians, so I can get them on stage. I can add. That's a numbers thing for me too, but it also makes sure that I keep going to open mics. I keep looking for new talent because I owe that to the audience and the venues who have us, because I don't want anything to get stale. And again, I want to promote from within. Absolutely. So if you guys are working hard, there are comedians in Ithaca right now who like probably I should be trying to get more work.
We had Kenny on recently.
Yeah, he's not one of them. I don't like him either. Why don't you guys have any comedians I like? No, I like Kenny a lot. But, and that I get along with pretty much everybody. That helps. But no, I don't know. It's fun for me. And yeah, on the website, you can see like their bios that I use for the posters and everything. Usually it's submitted by them, but I write a lot of them. But yeah, I need to go back and basically take a day. Be like, okay, I got to add this guy. I got to add this woman.
A lot.
Yeah. It is. But I think like that for me is like a kind of a nice touch, because I had one guy from New York City, Ryan Garcia. He worked in Rochester. He says me, I haven't talked to him in maybe a year since he moved. And he sent me a message a few months ago. And he goes, "Hey man, I just got to thank you." I go, "Why?" He goes, "Cause I think it was an aunt or some relative. Yeah, she Googled my name and she saw me like my bio on your website, and that made me legit to her."
Wow.
So I'm like, all right, cool. It's kind of a cool thing. I didn't think would happen, but
I wasn't sure where that story was going. Then.
Yeah, I know. Like, yeah, I got to say its number. And I got to go ruin a family. Or add to it.
One thing I want to say before we go, I know we're wrapping up. Mike did something that I think you would appreciate. One of my favorite shows I ever did is he did his own funeral, where he was.
I didn't do it. Hold on.
It wasn't you.
It was thrown for me. No,
I keep fucking up all the stories.
Listen,
you tell it.
I'm not that egotistical.
That's true.
Yes, I am.
It was Stephen Brown.
Stephen Brown and my girlfriend, Sasha Ernest. I believe it was Sasha's idea. We've been dating for about 2 years at the time, maybe a year and change. But yeah, for my 39th birthday,
Wow.
they decided to throw a funeral for me at the Barley Corn in Owego. And it was like they picked a Sunday.
Naturally.
Yeah,
That's where you
my
go.
local place. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where every funeral is.
All the time.
So no, they threw a funeral for me and they invited, it was really touching. They invited like 23, 24 comedians, came down from out of state, upstate, and basically roasted me for about an hour and 45 minutes. And then I went up and roasted all of them for a few minutes.
It
and
was so good.
That's awesome.
It was so much fun. And I had to go and grab a new suit because my other one shrank or whatever. And so I stood up there for 2 hours basically listening to who I thought were my friends make fun of me. But it was really nice because like I don't see Brindisi all that often. I don't see like RJ Papura came down from Rochester to see it. I had people come up from Scranton. And
I even wore a
Lewisburg.
suit. I wore a
I know.
suit.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah.
They all dressed up for the most part. And it was and Matt, I don't know how familiar you are with like local comedians, but like these guys don't do anything unless you pay them. Or if it's about themselves. And for one day,
It's required effort.
yeah, for one day I felt like, wow, these guys actually like me. and they the tip jars are passed around and they're like, yeah, this is all for you. And I'm like,
What?
why? I felt like I had to Venmo everybody after.
No.
Hey, I'm sorry you had to do this. And no, it was just,
And we all did it
really touching.
We did it for free because we love them.
Of course.
And who doesn't love a good old fashioned roast?
It was
Yeah.
It was
a lot of fun.
honestly one of the most fun sets I ever wrote in my life. It was so much fun.
The whole thing is on YouTube.
Oh,
If
I
you
didn't
wanna
know
watch-
that.
Yeah,
Have to
it's on
check it
YouTube.
out.
We're
I
gonna
watched.
have
I
to
watched.
find
The
that.
funeral of Mike Peters.
Yeah, it's if you go to my YouTube channel, I don't know it. It should be Mike Peters, but I really don't remember.
We'll find it.
It's open for me. I can send it to you.
Yeah.
But it's really funny, and everybody hit it out of the park. And the funny part was, the best part for me is like as a booker or whatever, and because Mike, I don't know if you booked a lot of comedy shows, but I think you're in a good position because you're the hired help at this point.
Right.
So you load off your back. You don't have to deal with a lot of this bullshit.
Sure.
But when you book a show, you're going to get inundated with people saying, hey, how can I get on that?
Oh,
Hey, think
yeah.
of me, whatever. It's annoying. But there's this one comedian who is awful. She's the worst person in the world. And not non-politician, at least. But she's terrible. She's a bad comedian, bad human. And she came up to me afterward.
Is she from Albany?
No, but she might be. I don't know. I don't know where
Okay.
she's living now. She's from originally, I think, Long Island.
Okay.
Originally, but I'll say her name. I don't give a shit.
say it.
Ella Rubinson.
Okay.
I just whatever. She's whatever. Anyway, she's the only person I told couldn't do my show because she's not funny. Like,
Wow.
dude, it was so therapeutic. I was trying for 6 years. I tried to be nice. And you ever watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
Oh,
Yeah.
All right, Gail the Snail.
Yes.
Okay, so the way Mike, do you know the character?
I don't.
Mike doesn't watch
so-
television.
I don't watch anything
Okay.
Matt watches.
All right, I'll describe it
Apparently.
to you. So the main cast has a brother and sister, and their cousin Gail. They call her Gail the Snail because she's weird. It rhymes, obviously, but she like breathes in. She just does annoying things, and she doesn't know boundaries. So the only way
She's like somebody from Mohawk.
Oh, okay.
So the only way they figured out a way to handle her is by salting her, like being rude, but also throwing salt.
like a snail. Yeah.
It's weird. So that's how I deal with this person. I tried for years to be very nice and tolerant and whatever. And finally I'm like, no, just be truthful.
Wow.
And like just which is mean. So she called me. She goes, hey, could you do a show? If I paid you, would you promote this show for me and book me as it's one of your shows? And I said no. And she says, what do I need to do to get on one of your shows? I said, you can't do one mic. She goes,
Good for
why?
you.
I said, because nobody laughs at you at the open mics.
Yeah.
And she goes, they do it paid shows. I said, send me the tape. And I'm still waiting.
I'm still waiting.
That's impressive. That she must be bad because you are very.
You book him.
Yeah, you book me. First of all, you book me. Second of all, I've seen some people dying on stage before at one
I
of
book
your
everybody.
And you've never said a bad word about. You get the game. You get that those things happen. So for you to not only call her out and refuse that must be bad, real bad. Yeah.
Everybody, Mike Peters.
Homebrewed Comedy.
That's the place to go.
On the Mic with Mike Peters is his podcast. Mike,
we really appreciate you joining us, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much, buddy. It's so good to see you in this realm instead of just when we're doing shows together. It's nice to catch up with you for real, man.
Anytime you guys want to talk, I'm here. So
come on anytime. Open invitation.
Nothing going in the morning. I'm waiting for my dog groomer to call so I can go get him. And
there you go.
What a life. What a life.
But thanks, guys. This is so much fun. I appreciate you guys.
No,
we'll talk to you later, buddy.
See ya.
Bye, guys.